to everybody joining us on Facebook Live. Thank you for coming to this P Squared chats, as we're calling them. We are honored to have Sanjiv Goyal with us today on a one-on-one with me. Sanjiv is the CEO of Extent AI. He's the chairman of Droisis, the company that he set up and grew substantially. He's also a board advisor to a company called Mobi Fusion. And he also calls himself now, I think he's stepped back from his sort of day-to-day executive duties of running several companies, which he used to do, and really sort of now focusing very interestingly on the future. So, he calls himself a futurist, an AI expert, somebody who's, taking the time to sort of reflect. And he was doing this before this pandemic. And I think the pandemic has sort of elevated the need for such conversations for sure. So he's just taken this view that, look, let's really think about how technology in particular, I think, and other things can really transform the human condition across the globe. And then he's focusing on multiple things. He's coming to us from Silicon Valley. He's a angel investor from that area as well. So I'm pleased to have you on board, Sanjiv. Thank you for joining us at short notice. I must add, we had a chat over the weekend, and he said, "Oh, I'll join you." So that was welcome. Thank you.
Thank you.
So before we sort of get into the serious stuff, we posted your profile picture and background on various channels as you woken up this morning. I'm sure you've seen that. So just want to know, inquiring minds, I won't say who they are in particular, but there's been quite a few of them, want to know whether you're single, by the way.
Yes.
So I said the last time I checked, I know he was. So I'll let him answer that one. So okay, good. So now that we've gotten that out the way, you might have a
That's surprising, but that's okay.
Well done, Lavi. Well done. You just built him a new fan base.
Yeah, look, we love our guests, and when they come on board, we try to do as much as we can to enhance their brand, shall we say that? So, Sanjiv, I mean, I know you took part in as an audience member on our previous panel, which was on putting Pandora back into the box, using emerging technologies to fight pandemics. Any sort of thoughts that came out of that, and what were your impressions of that panel? And then I'll ask you a couple of other questions as well. But what were your thoughts? I mean, was that useful for you?
No, that was absolutely wonderful. And so basically, I would like to add two things, which I conclude after that conversation. And I'm thinking, I mean, again, you have a lot of time, especially we are locked down in the house. So a lot of thinking is going on. I can say there are two things very important, measurement and connections. If I really look at all this scenario and the problems we are dealing with and how do we solve it, if we can measure things and we can connect things where the connection doesn't apparent. So connections are there, but the connections are not really visual or visible. We have to find those connections. And that is what the challenge today is. So the way I talk to my team, and we are working on something interesting for COVID-19 kind of issues or related issues. I'm saying is it's when we have systems like for tsunami, for earthquake, why don't we have a system for humans, human health? There is nothing out there where we have at the global level this data where we can correlate, where we can see what is happening in Wuhan to Australia to everywhere else. We have these things for tsunami. We have these things in at every single natural calamity you can think of. And that is what missing.
Quick warnings that sort of go around the world, sort of thing.
Pretty much.
It's a good point. I think what I'm saying is, if when this pandemic sort of first started to make its appearance in Wuhan, I think we were relying on the World Health Organization, WHO, to sort of do that. But that's what you're saying is that's sort of a cumbersome human process, right? With all of the frailties of that involved, like politics and people saying things and moving information. You're talking about a more systemic approach. I'm trying to put words in your mouth, but is that what you mean by that?
Pretty much like that. And I'm going to use the word global burden of disease, which is coined by Dr. Chris Murray. Amazing guy. I get to meet him and spend a few hours with him. We have done some work with IMHE too, which is the data even US government is using today. They have the largest data set. But the big thing is what we don't realize is how connected all of us are. So what happened in Wuhan, just imagine we are globally impacted. Every single country is impacted, more or less, economy to every single thing. Not forget, the loss of life is huge, but there are such a plethora of impact we have.
Mhm.
And the challenge I see it is there is no system globally where we can share data.
Okay.
If we have data timely available globally from the hospitals, from the institutions, from the government organization, in a way that it makes sense to all of us, we can not only stop this pandemic, we can stop all the future one, because this is just the beginning. As Bill Gates says, this is just the started. There will be more such viruses in the future.
Absolutely. So,
Are you talking about some sort of early warning system there, Sanjiv? You know, because you referenced the tsunami and how we were able to track that kind of stuff. So you're talking about essentially some sort of an early warning system, right?
So what I'm talking about it is it's not just early warning system. It's our biggest problem is we don't know what it is even now. With scientists to researchers to everybody is trying to put their head together and solve this problem. Until 4 weeks ago or 6 weeks ago, it was all malaria medicine and can cure all of us. And then say, no, it doesn't work, right? Then few weeks ago, it was all about zinc and vitamin D. And now there is a new flavor. And I'm talking to my doctor friends who are treating corona patients and in front line even on the daily basis. And now plasma therapy. Everybody's talking about plasma therapy. That's secondary. I think the bigger problem is if the data is not available, there is nothing we can do. I work in the AI space. I look at the industry. We have most amazing algorithms today. Google, Amazon, Microsoft has solved the problem of algorithms. The problem we couldn't solve is the data, quality of data. If we have the data available, we can do a lot more, not just even predicting these things, even how it is going to spread. How can we control? How the lockdown is really going to impact.
Question in my mind that I agree with you. I think as a technologist and as somebody who appreciates AI and what technology can do, I totally get this. I agree with you 100%. But I think what back of my mind, I think the back of a lot of people's minds right now, it's quite an interesting segue to the panel discussion we're going to have on Friday. The concern is, all this data, and I agree. I think the quality of the data, having all these integrated databases, right, from every country, sort of going into some master that everybody has access to, and all that, it also opens up the question of, what about privacy? What about data security? Right? There's a whole slew of sort of, who uses this. Look, North Korea's data is in there, so is South Korea's data. Are they going to, what stuff one country, or Chinese data is being used by Americans using Chinese data? Are there going to be issues of, we all, in one sense, we're all suffering together, but we still think in nation states, right? Whereas data, is sort of agnostic, right? In this situation, agnostic data, but still, understanding where it's coming from is important. So how do we sort of bridge this sort of, divide between sort of the greater need of having access to good, high quality data, but also, making sure that, people's concerns about, everything from a nation state all the way down to, hey, I don't want my data to be known by my neighbor, and vice versa. Like, so, how do we, and is there a technological, and I think you've talked to me about a little bit about, is there a technological solution that if we do have this data aggregation, can we also have a technological solution that sort of, prevents or secures our data? And I think we had a, sort of an initial conversation. Love for you to share some of that with our audience.
So, see, there are two aspects of data. One is the aspect of the data is the attributes of the data. One aspect of is really we talk about personally identifiable information. So, my DNA and my microbiome data, my health data, I have no problem if it is used for research purposes. And if you spoof my name out of it, because the only thing which is really connecting me is my name really there. If my name is not there, it is just a data set of a guy who lives in Silicon Valley and Las Vegas, travel a lot, etc., right? So, like, for example, I've been to, I think, 65 cities in last 12 months. I've been, I think, maybe 18 to 20 countries. And see, as a human, we are all connected. For the greater good, I have absolutely no problem. Now, if somebody, you can say, like, I'm just going to pull it a little bit extreme. If somebody decided to create a virus which impact only to the people who have DNA like me, that's where it get interesting, right? And that is a kind of theories people have, that this is going to happen. We can kill certain type of people. What happened in World War II? What Hitler was doing? There are millions of things people are talking about, like, genocides and all that. But that, I think, it has some legs, but it is baseless. Reason being, the greater good is far more important. I would like my parents to live a healthy life. You would like your parents to live an amazing life. We all want all the generations to have, and they have a natural course of death. We all understand it, as we are all going to go. Unlike my friend Naveen Jain, I don't want to say dying is optional. I want to die. I want to enjoy living. But, when there is my time, I want to go, because I believe in reincarnation. I believe that but coming back to our question of how do we secure this data? So there are two ways we can do it. One is blockchain has amazing promises. So by leveraging principles of blockchain, we can have certain portion, which is PII data, on the blockchain, just the PII data. So my PII data,
for those who might not, what is PII data?
Personally identifiable information.
Okay, great, thank you.
So basically, which kind of connect the data with me personally. I have no problem if my PII is not there. You can track all my movement to everything, as long as it is not connected with me. Right. So that's like, people are thinking about privacy. Well, privacy has been violated by every single company out there, whether the government and non-government. You and me are in technology. Every single telco knows every single minute, where am I?
Right. And I think you brought a very interesting point. I think our viewers would love to listen to this, which is, I think, we talked about this at some length the other night. We were saying, hey, look, North Americans, Europeans, and people in the UK have a very strong idea of freedom of choice. I think we value that, right? That we are independent actors who make our own decisions. And I remember, and I know from, you worked a lot in retail, you worked a lot in gaming in Las Vegas. So you were very familiar with the actual tech. You may have even built some of this. So one of the things is that, when we walk in, you were saying that when you walk into a grocery store, and I mean, you can take over from now, but that whole concept of choice, and we think we have a choice when we pick a certain brand of cereal or what. But tell me, what do simple things like grocery stores do that sort of break down this whole idea that we are making independent buying decisions of our choice?
So I'm going to go back the same thing. It's about measurement and connection,
right?
And these two words can help us understand whether it's COVID-19 or a behavior of a person in a retail store. Okay. If I can measure every single action you take in a grocery store and before, I can pretty much create a connection. And with the help of that connection, I can pretty much predict what you are going to buy. And I ensure that it is displayed in the same color, in the same flavors, in the same design, in the same crispiness catered to you. And you believe it is for you, but actually it is for a pretty large audience, because we are all same.
Yeah, so you aggregate the data. Yeah, so this is actual real life. I mean, this stuff has been there for 5, 6, 10 years now, and obviously every year it improves. So this is existing stuff where we think, oh, we go to the grocery store and we pick a brand. We're thinking, oh, we picked that brand because hey, blah blah blah. But it's actually, a lot of that is sort of conditioned, very much guided, negotiated kind of pathways. So similarly, I think, I always think of this. I was just thinking to myself, and I think Karthika was asking me earlier. It's like, we always think that, oh my God, the government is now going to sort of track everything about us, and they're going to get under the skin and find out about my temperature and everything. But then we fully don't understand that actually if you use a Fitbit, Google, who now owns Fitbit, now knows how we are sleeping, how much walking, right? Where we walked also, right? All of that stuff is already there. And they all know also everything we've done on, Facebook and everything else and browsers and all of that. So we've already sort of wittingly or unwittingly ceded a lot of our personal information, a lot more than probably what the government is trying to track now, to private individuals, right? Might not even be domiciled in the country of where you're living. So these are corporations that are outside of maybe say India or wherever you may be living. So again, we've had no problem with that, at least
Absolutely.
We have not really sort of thought about.
Sorry to interrupt you, Lavi, but what is the scare factor now for people, do you think? I mean, and that's open to both Lavi and Sanjiv, obviously.
Yes, Sanjiv, I would love to ask, why do
why are people scared now?
All of a sudden, you were okay with Facebook and Google, but not the government. Why?
So the problem is the media, I believe, and the way present the information. And government definitely is a big culprit, because the challenge is government doesn't have the kind of infrastructure needed to ensure that protection will be there. That's one problem. Second problem people have it is, especially all the intergovernment agencies, how they are going to use your data is a big concern, especially for a lot of people, I will say, not in America, but outside America or other countries where still things are done very differently in the businesses. Right? So tracking somebody's movement can be used by law enforcement. So, the same thing, the Minority Report 101. So the concern is coming from there that you can put me in a prison because based on my behavior, you think I'm going to do something wrong.
Yeah, Minority Report. Yeah, I remember.
So, and we are talking about it in Silicon Valley for a long time. And it has some truth, because if I can detect some early signs, I can pretty much predict your behavior as an individual. And that is where I brought the concept of peer-to-peer, which you and me talked about it. That how can I ensure that the key of my PII remains with me, and I press a button, and then without that key, nobody can identify me with that data.
So that's technologically possible, is what you're saying today?
Absolutely. It is possible. Technologically, absolutely possible. It's some variation of blockchain. We can do that. And it is a game changer technology. It can be done. But reality is there is no desire to do it. Why Facebook won't do it is because they want to know with PII. They want to know you so they can sell you another box of cereal or ketchup or something else. Or whatever, Maserati. So the thing is, but when it is in the private company's hand, mostly we believe that only violation they are going to do it is shove some products to us, which we believe we have a choice to buy or not buy. But when it goes to government, implications can be far more serious. And I do agree with people there that how do you ensure when the data is in the hands of government that it's not used to violate my privacy, it violate my rights, because the big thing is all about violating your rights.
Yes.
So that is an excellent point, and I just want to ask a question. And I'm asking this because Sanjiv, obviously you spoke a lot about reincarnation and stuff like that. Is so good of the many versus good of the one? Are we good of the many versus good of the one? Like, are we selfish enough to say that we don't want to be tracked because we're scared the government will use that information against us, even though that could potentially benefit society?
So answer is the government has to come with a policy. So the big challenge here is we are not talking about just one nation. I'm talking about global. Right. Because if I have the data only for New Delhi, there is no decision can be made.
Yeah.
Because just CM of New Delhi, I don't have enough data of the impact from UP or impact from Haryana or impact from other states of neighboring states at least.
Right.
And when I talk about these things globally, there is a need of a global data set. That's where I'm talking about, health data governance system and a monitoring system, because it required both, right? So those standards, I believe there should be a organization, like new organization should be formed, because I don't believe the UN has enough muscle power to do it, and it requires a very different kind of thinking. And it may require involvement from a lot of private parties, including Google to Facebook to everybody else. But it requires a very it's almost like a TCP/IP level discussion. That how do we lay out the foundation?
IP being it's like a global standard level discussion. So this is a global conglomerate of parties coming together to create a global standard, right? That's what
exactly. And then government to everybody access this data. That's
so
my take.
You have 5 more minutes, so I wanted to sort of open up the opportunity for our audience to understand, what makes Sanjiv Goyal stick. A little bit of your background story. I know you're from India. Obviously, I can tell that from your name and your accent. But a little bit of that story will be interesting. If you care to share that, that'll be wonderful.
I'll be happy to, but I'm so excited about talking about my peer-to-peer data. I'd love to talk more about that, but about me, I
we could definitely do a separate sort of a discussion, and we should probably bring in a few other technologies. We have a close colleague of ours and friend who's a blockchain expert. Love to have Mohan on. I think you know Mohan, right? IBM fellow. He's just about to retire from IBM after a very distinguished career.
Cool guy.
Yeah, you know him well.
Already retired.
Yeah, actually, you know what, Ravi, I would love to hear about Sanjiv's peer-to-peer stuff as well.
Yeah, so we could put something together where it's a very intimate, just two people sort of thing, and we'll sort of step back and maybe some slideware to go with it, so that we can talk about this in a. And I really like the idea. I mean, I was thinking that along the same lines that you do need. I mean, there is a lack of sort of global level data. I mean, it's I can just imagine why people are putting their hair out. Trying to figure out, because everybody must be reporting on different standards, right? So it must be a nightmare to try to see patterns. And even for good AI to work, I mean, there's a lot of compute capability that we heard from the last panel, high performance computing that IBM and Google and Amazon and everybody's opened up. But as you said, the quality of the data matters, right? Because the analysis is very dependent on the quality of the data. You and I know that from having worked in that area. So I can just imagine the sort of the bad data that's out there, especially inside the middle of a pandemic, because people are trying to save lives and not really worry about filling out forms and putting stuff into computers. And I think even the death counts. I mean, simple things is how many people have actually died from COVID from a country like the UK, US, or even with Russia. I mean, they're having because they're using different parameters to define who died, right? So I mean, it's that bad. So can you imagine what the rest of the data may be looking like? We can only imagine that. So what brought you to the US? I mean, I know you went to IIT Delhi for your MTech. What actually brought you to the US? What brought you to Silicon Valley, and what made you stay?
So so I grew up pretty just a very humble means. I'm the story I tell everybody is at the age of 14 I couldn't even afford shoes.
Okay.
And so my journey was very interesting. Somehow I made it to IIT. I was not the smartest kid in the class, but one thing I learned is if I really want it and I work hard for it, I can get it. And that's how I was able to get out of IIT when I finished my master's there with pretty good grades. I was 8-pointer and all. But there was that I had a curiosity that what is happening in the world, because I see world very differently than the people around me, in my opinion. So I packed my bag, this size duffel bag, I still remember, and I left India and I went to Singapore. Wow. And this is pre-internet days when you cannot apply for a job, and I didn't have time. I want to get a job, so every day, just like those old John Wayne movies, I used to pick newspaper and show up at their office. Hey, are you looking? I'm a cool guy. Why don't you hire me?
That's awesome.
It was for 1 week. It was pretty depressing. Nobody even interviewed me, but I was iterating and learning. So next week I got 2 offers, and in the same city where people used to tell me that we will not pay you same salary as a Singaporean, I end up designing the first vehicle location system of Asia.
Wow.
In fact, we did the first pocket MLS system, we call it, first real estate software on a mobile phone. Way back in 97, I presented in front of 6,000 agents. It was well received. And that's where my head started really spinning, that if we can connect the dots, that's where I talk about connection. Anything is possible. And I realized, and that is where my curiosity continued to go up and up and up. And I say, you know what? Singapore is great, but maybe I should go and see the other places because it was not big enough for my dreams. And dream is not really becoming a multi-billionaire. The dream is solving some problems, solving something which matters, something which has some impact on humanity. And I'm not talking about nonprofit here. I'm talking about creating, because I believe in nonprofit, but I don't believe that nonprofits are sustainable. In fact, I'm planning to join a board of an organization where they're talking about funding for benefit companies. So basically focused on which companies have an impact. So that is another one. And I end up here in America, and rest is a story. I mean, that's a longer story, but I've gone through my ups and downs. But life is beautiful and amazing. And now I'm mostly focused on health and food. That's my interest area. And food in particular, because I believe, and especially COVID-19, if I look at it, it gives tremendous opportunity and understanding to our supply chain. And we all know supply chain is going to completely change. Printing, 3D printing and all that is going to happen. But the big impact I see and interest I see it is in food. How do we have sustainable food? We are going to have 3 billion more people very, very soon, and maybe more because of last 2 months. So sooner. So the big thing is, how do we solve the food problem? And we don't have enough land to grow more food. We don't have enough water, and we don't have enough kettles. So we can't grow more, because otherwise the methane and all that is going to create more problems. So how do we do zero footprint farming? That is where my head is right now. And that's one of the reasons I invested in the company I shared with you.
Yeah, Clara Foods, right?
Clara Food. So Clara Food has developed, they have used the chicken DNA, but it is all vegan. Reason being, all they have used the DNA, and they have developed the whole technology in the lab where they can produce protein, which is tasteless, colorless. It can be mixed into anything. It's liquid. All made in lab. And unbelievable fermentation process. And they are already out of the research state. They are in the production now, and they are working with several major manufacturers, not at a wider scale, but at a pretty large scale.
If I want, if I want eggs to go into a cake, you have their product is there. No chickens died, no eggs have been sort of mucked with. There are no factory farms of chickens polluting the whole place and lives of chickens being miserable. You essentially have the egg from the DNA or the egg substitute, but it actually tastes like egg. So you put it into a cake, no one will know the difference. Is that or into a chocolate or into something else, or ice cream.
No, I will expand it a little bit further.
Love is just craving cake. Is that what it is?
No. I'm very interested in the subject, as you know.
So what it is basically, think of it as that you go out and pick a bottle of Coke, which until yesterday was not a healthy drink. Now it is a healthy drink. And it tastes exactly the same way it is today. But instead of caffeine or anything else, you have protein.
I see.
So the beauty of this technology is you can put into anything and it doesn't change the taste, and it gives protein, which is the hardest thing to do. You use chicken protein. I'm a vegetarian, but chicken protein, it is going to taste like chicken, right?
Right.
So
this is tasteless. I see.
So that the beauty is, it is a game changer technology. So it doesn't impact your taste. It doesn't impact anything. And you get the right ingredient. You and me both know in India, especially pregnancy is a huge issue. So many problems we have there is because the food is deficient in protein, right? And even the way we consume fat is really bad because we fry things. That's not fat. Fat
Right.
is you just take a spoonful of coconut oil or a spoonful of butter and just enjoy it. We
Right.
don't consume like that. The way we consume it, put it on the bread,
Right.
right? Layers of that, and we completely ruin the fat. Fat is so important for human body. We don't realize it.
Right.
But nobody's consuming fat the way it is supposed to be consumed. Then same with protein. Indian food is highly deficient in protein, not because we don't have the sources like lentils, pulses, and all has it, but
Right.
the way we consume it is not conducive for our body.
Okay, so interesting. So we should definitely have a additional conversation. Would love to have the person behind Clara Foods on a P Squared segment or on a panel. I would love to do that. That would be great. And if you could connect us, that would be awesome.
Sure,
So,
I'll be
Sanjiv,
happy to.
we're at the half an hour. I don't want to indulge too much of your time, but I must say, this is the first sort of P Squared chat we've done from Pandemic Punditry. So I must say it has gone. I feel it's gone brilliantly well. I hope you feel the same way. We obviously got a taste of some of your brilliance. Obviously, we would like to expand that further and have a future chat. But thank you for attending the previous panel, and I encourage you to look at the one coming on Friday, because I think some of the ideas that and we're having a full legal panel, so they're all lawyers. So they'll be interested to sort of.
That's scary, man.
It's scary. I have a guest host because I'm not going to deal with 5 lawyers on my own. So we're gonna and then they have background from. I mean, they're brilliant in their own right. We got
They're amazing.
Yeah,
my dearest friend in Vegas is a lawyer. He's amazing.
Yeah, so we got the AGC from Hershey Corporation, chocolate company. We got Pfizer background. I mean, we got tech background lawyers. So it's and constitutional lawyers. It's going to be a very interesting sort of a discussion, we hope. And so please join us. We'd love to get your feedback after that as well. And let's talk further. I mean, with Karthika and me on the future panel that we can put together.
Yeah, absolutely. And also, Sanjiv, do let us know if your friend request count has gone up.
Thank you. Thank you.
So in typical sort of in the new way of saying thank you and thanks again.
Absolutely.
And Sanjiv, have a rest of the day. I know you're just waking up and getting to work on your end. We're about to hit the sack on ours. So thanks again for joining us across the continents, and have a great rest of the day. Thank you, Sanjiv.
Thanks, Sanjiv.
Thanks, Karthika.
Bye.
Awesome.
Bye.